Hello everyone, this is the MassiveDroner from Catalyst Machine Works. I built mine using the HGLRC F428 flight stack, 28 amp 4-in-1 ESC, F4 flight controller with an OSD, power switchable VTX all the way up to 350 milliwatts, Foxeer Predator CMOS camera, Hawksky 1107 7500 kV motors, Jim Fan 2540 props, used my favorite battery strap, FrSky XM receiver, I attached a micro buzzer, used an XT30, vertical plates look like 1.5 millimeters, 3 millimeter bottom plate, 2.5 millimeter crossbar, and a 2.5 millimeter front crossbar. The arms are about 4.3 millimeters thick. I'm getting about 113 millimeters motor post to motor post. I'm getting 92 millimeters left to right and 68 front to back. Mine weighs almost 92 grams. So the first thing I want to talk about is these motors. These motors are highly regarded, and Hawksky has been hard to keep on the shelves. I went with the 7500s because I couldn't get the 6500s, so that means my flight time was a little bit shorter than it could have been on the 6500s. I think we would only be missing that very top end, and I suspect it would only matter on the, that last little bit on punch outs, things of that nature, where this would have an advantage over the 6500s. But we don't know that for sure. I've got a bunch of 6500s on order, but I have no idea when they're going to get here because everywhere I've been looking, they're back ordered, so I placed an order directly with Hawksky. But the motors are fairly unique. There's a couple little features about these motors, so let me get one out. So a few things I don't think are going to come through on camera, but we have our typical 4-hole mounting pattern, but we've got a really long stem, and we've also got a little bit of a rougher edge right around here. And something that I think is very interesting is that if we look closely, I don't think you'll see it, but these motor holes, there is more thread that goes down on the inside part than it does on the outside. So we just have this dimension here where we have threading, and then on the inside part it goes down even further, where you might be able to see that on camera if I got the light just right. And that's unique. And this really long motor stem, that could concern you, but as you see when you put on your nuts and everything, it's pretty much flat, so you don't have to worry about that. And with it coming up above, that actually helps to make sure that your motor or your prop screws do not come out, because they actually rub on this. You can feel kind of the grinding or the notching as you're putting these screws in against that motor post. So that's another thing that was fairly unique about these. You can see on the bottom we've got what I presume are cooling holes, and then we've got our four mounting holes as well. One thing I don't like about these motors is that when you're mounting your hardware from the bottom, you can't see the screw from this side. Normally I like to put the screw in or kind of do a dry fitting, and then I take my flashlight and I shine it through that space. And on many motors you can see through there, and so I look for the blue on the other side to make sure I don't have a screw that goes way too far. In this case, you really can't see it, so you've got to be quite careful. You've got to make sure you've got the right length of screws. And one of the reasons why I didn't use the titanium screws that was included in this kit was because I was worried these were too long and they were going to get into the motor. I couldn't be certain of that, but I did some dry fitting and I felt like it was coming up just above this silver line, and that might cause me a problem, and I didn't want to burn them out.
I have to pause the video here and acknowledge the fact that during the full flight that you did see that there were portions of that flight where I am actually babying the battery a little bit. And unfortunately, as we continue to demand more out of our motors and our props, we don't have batteries that can support them. I don't think that too many people have the same sort of flight style that I do, at least from what I hear on comments that I get back. So your flight time will likely be longer than this one, and you can actually see in the end of the video how I kind of think I need to come into land, because I had pretty consistent low battery warnings, and then I ended up flying another pass or two and then I land. You need to be careful about your own batteries, because the batteries I fly, I'm generally comfortable getting below 3.5 per cell and getting down into 3.4. Mine generally recover to either 3.6 or real close to 3.6 when they're unloaded. In other words, when I've disconnected them from the quad. You can check yours with a simple battery checker if it's reliable for you, or when you put it on the battery charger to see what it reports itself to be at. That is, if you have a good battery charger. The charger I use is the Q200. It charges 4 batteries at a time. It's worked very well for me for well over a year. I do have that link down in the gear that I use. You might want to check that out if you're just getting started or if you're looking for a new charger.
I did try several sets of motors. I tried a series of 1104s, 1105s, 1106s, and 1107s, and then I decided to stick with this. I do, again, wish I had the 6500s to try, but you know, we have to move forward at some point in time. One other thing, I did have problems with my stack. For the first time, I had a stack failure, and it seemed to be about the pins. Now, some of you will say, aha, I told you so, but I've used these stacks probably 8 times, and this is the first time I've had a problem with the pins. I actually tried to resolder them, and it didn't work out very well, so I ended up with a flight controller that wouldn't work. I think I've got it. Yeah, this one here. This flight controller doesn't quite work right. It doesn't power up anymore, which is kind of sad. So there may be a way of fixing it, but it seems like the pins they're not making the connection needed. So that's the first time I've had a problem with that. And I have a video coming up that will be an alternate to this flight stack that I think works fairly well. I don't want to give it a resounding recommendation just yet, because I haven't put nearly as many flights on that stack than I have on this stack, but I think it's something you all need to be aware of. So look for that video here shortly. I think I could have dropped some weight if I'd have taken my wires directly through, but I chose to go this way because, again, this wasn't the first set of motors. This is kind of the last set. If you look, if I can get the angle right, with the Foxeer Predator, so this frame has the sliding mechanism, and then you have 2 holes, one right here, so you can go as far back as you need to in order to protect your camera. But when you do that, you can see where your connector starts to hit against your flight stack. And I found that when I had the wires going this way, it was up even more slightly. So I wanted to come in from the other direction in order to make sure I got kind of as much camera angle as I could. Again, the Foxeer Predator Micro tends to have a bit of a longer nose, but we're starting to see that more and more. That concerns me a little bit with these CMOS cameras. We get more lines of resolution, supposedly, and we're getting longer noses or lenses. Where I've got mine positioned, hopefully I can show this in some fashion. It hits right here at the top, as you can hear that. But the lens is actually protected, so at the top and at the bottom, I seem to be in good shape as far as the glass goes, but it does hit the outer ring part. So that's something you need to be aware of if you fly with different cameras. If you got a plan for the Runcam Micro Eagle, I think that one is going to well stick out because it is pretty good size. I've got one around here somewhere. Where'd it go? Here we go. So give you some idea on the size of that camera. It's got a huge lens on it, and it's pretty long. This is a FlexRC 3-inch frame, so that one will be able to, you'll be able to use it. This is actually made for the split, so keep that in mind, that this is kind of a completely different category of model than this one is. The other part that I'm a bit concerned about are these 3D pieces, but I didn't have any troubles, and I actually took these pieces off quite a few times. We've got these two mounts, and they come with these forever tubes in the kit. So to route your, like if you have an XM Plus for your diversity, why they do it like this, I can't say, because that's not ideal. Why have two antennas and they both come out the same way? And the hole's not big enough to where you could thread this antenna through it, because I tried. You could ream it out if you wanted to, get a drill bit and ream that out, and you could mount your VTX antenna in the same manner that you've got your receiving antenna. But that's not ideal either. So this is something that I think could use some revision. I do see why they would want to put it flat like this, because, you know, when you roll over, then it wouldn't be damaging those bits. And quite frankly, I didn't have any problems. You saw the flight footage. I didn't have any problems with the control. Of course, I don't fly out at long range, and I didn't really have any video, but again, any video problems, but again, I don't fly out at long range, and right now there's not a lot of vegetation on the trees. Our warmer weather really hasn't really come into full force yet. The other thing I was concerned about was, you know, these pieces at the front and the back are a little bit optional. I would recommend using them, especially in the front, because that's where you're going to have a lot of impact, and this area in general is relatively weak unless you put this front piece in. And it is milled quite well, so it does fit in there quite tightly. You can put the rear two screws in your motors and then slide this piece, kind of wiggle it back and forth over the top and get these in. So, and I didn't have any problems obviously at the back, but I wanted to keep that because, you know, I crash a lot. You can see where I've added my strain relief for my battery leads. It's right across there. I went to that. Originally I had it around here, but because I was taking motors and stuff off all the time, it got a bit cumbersome, and then I had it up here, and because I was having troubles with my flight stack, then I found I was cutting that apart. So I ended up going here, and then that allowed me to work on it a little bit more seamlessly. I'll go ahead and put the PEDs on screen. If you build it in any way, shape, or form differently than this, or you use different batteries than I did, then those PIDs aren't going to work out very well for you, but they're there for you to use if you choose to. I did fly with these 3 batteries. This one did not make it into the film, I don't believe, because this one did yield a longer flight time, as it should, because it's 100 mAh more, and it is a bigger battery too, so that could have an impact on your flight. Depends upon what you're looking for. If you're wanting to throw it over stuff maneuvers, a heavier battery might help. If you're wanting to stay low and go fast and do quick maneuvers, sharp maneuvers, then a lighter battery would be the way to go. Essentially, these 2 batteries are the same. It's just Race Day Quads has put their own label on it, because when you measure them up and you look at them, they are either they're the same or they're eerily similar in size, weight, and dimensions and performance. It's a good kit. I think many of you probably already have one. I've had this for weeks, and I've worked on trying to find an ideal motor, and I've got a video that will be coming out in a week or two, I think, about how we're going about our micros. I think we might be on the wrong path. We may have gotten away from what we needed to focus on, as motors like 1107s have become more available. But anyways, I'll save that information for another day. If you have any questions about this machine, how I built it, my experience with it, please leave those in the comments down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.